The morning sun of Nexus Prime cast long shadows across the massive training grounds of the Galactic Military Academy. The Academy was the most important military school in the known galaxy, where young warriors from dozens of different worlds came to learn the art of war and diplomacy. The buildings were made of gleaming white metal that seemed to glow in the alien sunlight, and the training facilities stretched for miles in every direction. Li Wu-jin walked slowly across the main courtyard, carrying his standard-issue training gear in a simple black bag. His dark hair was cut short according to military regulations, and his brown eyes took in everything around him with quiet curiosity. At 19 years old, he was considered young, even by human standards, but here among the alien cadets, he looked like a child. The courtyard buzzed with activity as cadets from different species prepared for the days. Training Wu-jin watched as a group of Altarians practiced combat moves near the central fountain. These tall, blue-skinned warriors moved with incredible speed and grace. Their yellow eyes glowed with inner energy, and when they struck the practice dummies, the sound echoed across the entire courtyard like thunder. Each Altarian stood nearly 7 feet tall with muscles that could crush steel and reflexes faster than most creatures could even see. Near the weapons storage building, a squad of Velocians were demonstrating their natural abilities to phase through solid matter. The green-skinned aliens seemed to flicker in and out of existence as they passed through walls and training equipment as if they were made of nothing more than air. Their movements were so quick that human eyes could barely follow them, and they seemed to enjoy showing off for the other species. On the far side of the courtyard, the Titan cadets were having their own training session. These massive rock-like beings stood over 8 feet tall, and their skin looked like living stone covered in ancient markings that glowed with a dull red light. When they practiced their combat techniques, the ground shook beneath their feet, and the sound of their fists hitting the training posts could be heard from miles away among all these incredible alien warriors. The human cadets looked small and weak and completely out of place. There were only 4 humans in the entire academy, and they sat together at a metal table near the cafeteria building, like lost children at a school for giants, Kim. So Ra was the only female human cadet, and she spent most of her time reading technical manuals about alien technology. Her black hair was pulled back in a tight ponytail, and her intelligent eyes missed nothing that happened around her. She was 20 years old and had been the top student at the Earth Military Academy before volunteering for this exchange program park. Dong-ho was a cheerful young man who always tried to make friends with the alien cadets, even though most of them ignored him completely. He had a round face that was always smiling, and he spoke several alien languages better than any other human at the academy. He was 18 years old and came from a family of diplomats who believed that understanding other cultures was the key to peace. Choi Min-ki was the quietest of the 4 humans. He rarely spoke unless spoken to directly, and he spent most of his time observing the alien training methods and taking notes in a small leather journal. His serious expression never changed, and he had a way of blending into the background that made others forget he was even there. Wu-jin joined his 3 friends at their usual table and set down his training bag. The morning meal was the same as always, a collection of foods from different worlds that were supposed to be nutritious for all species, but tasted like cardboard to human tongues. So Ra looked up from her technical manual and nodded at Wu-jin. "Good morning," she said in her usual calm voice. "Did you sleep well?" The alien cadets in the dormitory were practicing their war chants until very late last night. Wu-jin smiled slightly. "I heard them," he replied. "The Altarians seem to think that making noise will make them better." Warriors. Dong-ho laughed and nearly choked on his breakfast. That is not fair to say. Maybe their war chants actually help them focus their energy. I read that some species use sound vibrations to enhance their natural abilities. Min-ki looked up from his journal where he had been sketching the training formations he had observed. "Sound can be a weapon," he said quietly. "The Velocians use ultrasonic frequencies to disorient their enemies during combat." As they talked, a shadow fell across their table. Commander Vex, Tar, stood. Behind them, his massive blue frame blocking out the morning sunlight. The Altarian commander was one of the most decorated warriors in the Galactic fleet, and his presence always made the human cadets feel even smaller than usual. His yellow eyes glowed with barely contained energy, and the scars on his arms told stories of battles against creatures that would give most humans nightmares. "Humans," he said in his deep voice that sounded like distant thunder report to Training Hall 7 in 10 minutes today, we will test your combat abilities against the other species. The 4 human cadets looked at each other with concern. They had been dreading this day since arriving at the academy 6 months ago. Training Hall 7 was where the academy held its most intense combat exercises, and it was where many cadets learned just how outmatched they were compared to other species. "Yes, Sir Wu Jin," replied, standing up and giving the proper military salute. "We will be there on time, Commander Vex." Tar looked down at the young human with something that might have been amusement or contempt. It was difficult to tell with Altarians. "Try not to embarrass your entire species too badly," he said, before walking away toward the main academy building. Ra gathered her books and technical manuals. "We should go early and observe the training area," she suggested. "Maybe we can learn something about the combat protocols before we have to participate." The 4 humans walked together toward Training Hall, 7 passing groups of alien cadets who whispered and pointed at them as they went. Most of the whispers were not meant to be cruel, but the content was always the same speculation about how quickly the humans would be defeated and whether they would survive the training exercises at all training. Hall 7 was enormous even by the standards of the academy. The ceiling stretched up nearly 50 feet, and the floor was covered with training mats that could absorb impacts that would shatter normal materials. Along the walls were racks of training weapons designed for different species and monitoring equipment that could track the performance of cadets during combat exercises. When they entered the hall, they found it already filled with alien cadets from every species at the academy. The Altarians stood in perfect military formation, their blue skin gleaming under the bright training lights. The Velocians flickered in and out of visibility as they warmed up for the exercises, and the Titans created small earthquakes with their practice strikes. Commander Vex Tar stood on a raised platform at the center of the hall, his voice carrying easily to every corner of the massive space. "Today, we will test the combat reflexes and natural fighting abilities of every species represented at this academy," he announced. "Each group will demonstrate their capabilities, and we will evaluate their potential as galactic defenders." He gestured toward the alien cadets. "The Altarians will show us speed and precision. The Velocians will demonstrate phasing techniques. The Titans will display their incredible strength." And he paused, looking directly at the 4 human cadets. "Even our newest members will have the opportunity to show us what their species can contribute." The testing began with the Altarians, and the display was incredible to watch. They moved like lightning striking practice dummies with such speed that the human eye could barely follow their movements. When they finished their demonstration, the practice equipment was completely destroyed, and the other alien cadets cheered and applauded. The Velocians were next, and they seemed to dance through solid objects as if the laws of physics did not apply to them. They phased through walls, attacked targets from impossible angles, and disappeared completely before reappearing behind their opponents. It was like watching magic performed by beings who had mastered the very nature of reality itself. The Titans' demonstration was simply overwhelming. They created small craters in the reinforced training floor with their punches, and when they struck the metal training posts, the sound was like explosions. Each blow contained enough force to destroy a small building, and their rock-like skin seemed completely immune to any form of damage. Finally, it was time for the human demonstration, and the hall fell silent as Wu Jin stepped forward to represent his species. 3 weeks had passed since the combat demonstration, and life at the Galactic Military Academy had become increasingly difficult for the human cadets. The alien species had watched Wu Jin perform his careful, precise movements against the training dummy, and their reaction had been exactly what everyone expected. Quiet laughter, whispered comments, and looks of barely concealed contempt. The human demonstration had been technically perfect. Wu Jin had moved with smooth, controlled motions, striking the reinforced training dummy with accuracy that impressed even some of the instructors, but compared to the lightning-fast Altarians, the phase-shifting Volosians, and the ground-shaking Titans, his performance looked slow, weak, and completely inadequate. For real combat, Ara had noticed the tiny cracks in the metal training dummy where Wu Jin had struck, but she kept this observation to herself. The cracks were barely visible, and she was not sure if they were significant or just normal wear and tear from months of training exercises. She decided to watch and wait before drawing any conclusions. The harassment had started small. At first, alien cadets would accidentally bump into humans in the corridors or take the best seats in the cafeteria. Before the humans could sit down, training equipment would mysteriously disappear when humans needed it, and study materials would be borrowed and never returned. These incidents could be explained as simple mistakes or cultural misunderstandings, but as the weeks passed, the harassment became more obvious and more cruel. Altarian cadets would use their superior speed to trip humans as they walked past Volosian cadets, would phase through human belongings, making them scatter across the floor. And Titan cadets would use their strength to bend human equipment into useless shapes. The instructors either did not notice these incidents or chose to ignore them. Commander Vextar had made his opinion of human capabilities very clear during the combat demonstration, and his attitude seemed to give permission for the other alien cadets to treat humans as inferior beings. On this particular morning, the 4 human cadets were in the weapons storage bay trying to complete a routine training exercise. Each cadet was supposed to demonstrate proper handling techniques for standard galactic military equipment. The problem was that most of the weapons and gear had been designed for alien physiology and were completely impractical for human. Park Dong-ho was struggling with a standard Altarian plasma rifle. The weapon had been built for beings who stood 7 feet tall with arms that were nearly twice as long as human arms. The rifle was so heavy that Dong-ho could barely lift it, and so large that he could not properly aim it even with both hands. He adjusted his grip, trying to find some way to hold the oversized weapon that would allow him to complete the exercise. The plasma rifle was nearly as long as he was tall, and the energy pack alone weighed more than most human weapons. The targeting system was calibrated for Altarian eyes, which could see energy patterns invisible to human vision, as Dong-ho shifted the rifle to try a different holding position. The massive weapon bumped against someone behind him. He turned quickly to apologize and found himself looking up at Sergeant Krath, one of Commander Vextar's most trusted subordinates. Sergeant Krath was even larger than most Altarians, standing over 7.5 feet tall with muscles that looked like they had been carved from blue stone. His yellow eyes burned with constant anger, and his scarred face told stories of battles that had made him famous throughout the Galactic Fleet. He was known for his short temper and his belief that only the strongest species deserved to serve in the military. The accidental contact with the plasma rifle had barely touched the massive sergeant, but his reaction was immediate and violent. His face twisted with rage, and his glowing eyes fixed on Dong-ho like targeting systems locking onto an enemy, worthless human scum. Krath roared, his voice echoing through the weapons bay. "You dare to touch me with your pathetic weakness," before Dong-ho could respond, or even move to get out of the way. Krath's massive hand swept through the air. The slap caught Dong-ho across the side of his head with enough force to lift him completely off his feet and send him flying across the weapon. Storage Bay, Dong-ho. crashed into the far wall with a sickening sound that made everyone in the bay stop what they were doing and stare. His body crumpled to the floor, and he lay motionless, blood beginning to trickle from his nose and the corner of his mouth. The weapons. Bay fell completely silent. Every alien cadet in the room turned to watch what would happen next. Most of them expected the remaining humans to run for help, or perhaps cower in fear and beg for mercy. That was what prey animals did when confronted by predators, and everyone knew that humans were nothing more than clever prey animals who had somehow developed technology. Instead, Wu Jin stepped forward. His movements were calm and controlled, and there was something in his dark eyes that made even the largest alien cadets take notice. He walked to where Dong Ho lay unconscious and knelt down to check his friend condition. So Ara and Min Ki rushed to help, moving quickly but carefully to avoid making any sudden movements that might provoke more violence. So Ra began checking Dong Ho for serious injuries, while Min Ki positioned himself to protect their unconscious friend. The blood from Dong Ho's nose was spreading across the metal floor, and his breathing was shallow and irregular. It was clear that the sergeant blow had caused serious damage, possibly including a concussion or internal injuries. Wu Jin stood up slowly and turned to face Sergeant Krath Un. The difference in their sizes was almost comical. The massive, blue-skinned alien towered over the young human like a mountain over a pebble. But something in Wu Jin's expression made the watching alien cadets feel suddenly uncertain. That was unnecessary, Sergeant Wu Jin said in a voice that carried clearly through the silent weapons bay. Cadet Park meant no disrespect. The contact was accidental, and he was attempting to apologize. Krath Un threw back his head and laughed, a sound like boulders crashing down a mountainside. "What will you do about it, little human?" he demanded, stepping closer until his shadow completely covered Wu Jin. "Your species is weak, pathetic, worthless. You have no place among real warriors." The other alien cadets began to form a circle around the confrontation, sensing that they were about to witness something entertaining. They expected to see the human cadet break down and cry, or perhaps try to run away like a frightened animal. More alien cadets were entering the weapons bay, drawn by the commotion and the sound of Krath Un's booming voice. Soon, nearly 50 cadets from various species had gathered to watch the drama unfold. They whispered among themselves, placing bets on how quickly the human would surrender or how badly he would be injured. "Apologize to my friend Wu," Jin said quietly, his voice steady, despite being surrounded by beings who could easily kill him with their bare hands. Or what Krath Un stepped even closer, looming over the human cadet like a living mountain, his massive fists clenched and unclenched, as if he was imagining what it would feel like to crush the small human. "I could snap your neck right now and no one would care. Your deaths would be listed as training accidents." The threat hung in the air like poison gas. Everyone in the weapons bay knew that Krath Un was probably telling the truth. Humans were the newest and weakest members of the galactic community, and their deaths would barely be noticed by the vast alien civilizations. Several alien cadets nodded in agreement with the sergeant's words. They had all heard stories about species that had been eliminated from the galactic community for being too weak to contribute anything valuable. Humans seemed to be heading down the same path, but Wu Jin did not back down or show any sign of fear. Instead, he looked up at the massive alien sergeant with an expression that made even the most confident alien cadets feel a strange chill of uncertainty. When he spoke, his voice carried something that none of them had expected. "From a member of a weak prey species, you have 5 minutes to apologize," he said simply. "After that, things will become complicated." The words seemed to echo in the sudden silence of the weapons bay, and for the first time since the incident began, some of the alien cadets began to wonder if they were missing something important about the quiet human cadet who stood calmly in the shadow of certain death. Sergeant Krath, laughter filled every corner of the weapons storage bay, echoing off the metal walls and drowning out the whispers of the gathered alien cadets. His massive frame shook with amusement at the idea that a tiny human could threaten him or anyone else in the galactic military. 5 minutes, the sergeant repeated between bursts of laughter. What happens in 5 minutes? Little human, do you think your friends will come to save you? Maybe you will call for your mommy to protect you from the big scary aliens. The crowd of alien cadets joined in the laughter, finding the situation highly entertaining. A few of the Velocian cadets began taking bets on exactly how the human would be killed, while some Titan cadets started a pool on how many pieces the body would be broken into, but Wu Jin had already turned away from the laughing sergeant and walked calmly to the nearest communication terminal. The device was built into the wall and required proper authorization codes. To access military channels, most cadets only had permission to send basic messages to their families or request supplies from the academy. Quartermaster. Wu Jin fingers moved quickly across the alien interface, typing in codes and accessing systems. That should have been completely beyond the reach of a first-year cadet. The watching aliens assumed he was simply trying to send a distress message to human authorities, who were probably thousands of light years away and completely powerless. To help. What are you doing? Sora whispered as she continued to care for the unconscious Dong Ho. Her voice was filled with worry, not just for their injured friend, but for what Wu Jin might be planning, sending a message home. Wu Jin replied, without looking up from the communication terminal. His fingers continued to dance across the alien symbols and numbers with the confidence of someone who had used this type of equipment many times before. The alien cadets continued to mock and laugh, but a few of the more intelligent ones began to notice something strange about the human actions. The communication terminal was displaying authorization levels and access codes that first-year cadets should not possess. The human was not just sending a simple message, but was accessing high-level military communication channels. A Velocian cadet named Zex phased closer to look over Wu Jin's shoulder. His green skin flickered with confusion as he saw the security clearances being displayed on the screen. These are command-level access codes, he whispered to his friends. How does a human cadet have authorization for military fleet communications? Commander Vex Tar chose that moment to enter the weapons bay, drawn by the noise and commotion. His yellow eyes quickly took in the scene, the unconscious human cadet bleeding on the floor, the crowd of excited alien cadets and his sergeant standing over a small human who was typing at a communication terminal. "What is this disturbance?" he demanded, his voice cutting through the laughter and conversations like a sword. His presence immediately brought order to the chaotic scene as cadets snapped to attention. "Your sergeant assaulted one of my classmates without provocation," Wu Jin said, turning. "Away from the communication terminal for the first time since the incident began, I have requested that he apologize." Commander Vex Tar looked at the blood on the floor and the motionless form of Dong Ho, then back at his trusted sergeant. "Krath Yun is within his rights to discipline cadets who show disrespect," he declared. "If you cannot handle military training, perhaps humans should return to their little planet and hide among the other prey animals. 3 minutes remaining," Wu Jin said, checking a small device on his wrist that none of the alien cadets had noticed before. The comment about returning to Earth made several alien cadets angry. A group of Titan cadets began moving closer, their rock-like faces showing expressions of annoyance at the human apparent arrogance. How dare a member of a weak species set deadlines for superior beings? But before anyone could take action against the defiant human, the Academy emergency alert system activated with an urgent tone that sent chills down the spines of every cadet in the weapons bay. The sound meant only one thing: unknown. Hostile forces approaching the system. All cadets report to battle stations immediately. The Academy computer announced in multiple languages. Priority. 1 alert. Unknown vessels detected entering system space. All defensive protocols now active. Through the large, reinforced windows of the weapons bay, everyone could see them. Dark shapes dropping out of hyperspace at the edge of the Nexus Prime system. The ships were unlike anything in the Galactic Fleet databases, sleek, angular vessels that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. The alien cadets pressed against the windows, trying to count the unknown ships, but they kept appearing faster than anyone could track them. Within minutes, the space around the Academy was filled with hundreds of mysterious vessels moving with predatory grace into attack formations. 2 minutes, Wu Jin said calmly, as if alien invasion fleets appeared every day. Commander Vextar was shouting orders, trying to organize the panicking cadets while simultaneously attempting to contact Academy Command. His training told him to prepare for battle, but he had no idea what they were facing or how to fight ships that did not appear in any known database. The unknown vessels took positions around the planet, creating a perfect sphere of threatening firepower that could destroy the Academy and everyone in it within seconds, but they made no aggressive moves and sent no demands. They simply waited in formation like predators, surrounding trapped prey. Then every communication device in the weapons bay activated simultaneously. Wujin wrist device, so Ray portable scanner, Minky data recorder, and even the main communication terminal all began broadcasting the same signal. The voice that emerged spoke in perfect galactic standard, but with an accent that made the 3 conscious human cadets straighten with sudden recognition. "This is Admiral Li Jin, Wu of the Human Defense Corps," the voice announced with calm authority. "We have received a distress signal from one of our people, indicating an unprovoked assault on human personnel. You have 30 seconds to respond, or we will assume hostile intent and act accordingly." The weapons bay fell silent except for the hum of hundreds of human warships maintaining position around the Academy. Every alien eye turned to Wu Jin, who remained perfectly calm despite the massive fleet that had appeared. In response to his message, Commander Vextar face had gone pale blue with shock and fear. "That is impossible," he stammered. "Humans do not have that kind of fleet. Your species barely has interplanetary travel technology." Wu Jin smiled for the first time since the incident began. It was not a pleasant expression. "You never asked the right questions." "Commander," he replied, "you assumed we were weak because we joined the galactic community peacefully. You thought our small trade ships and diplomatic vessels represented our full military capabilities." The communication system crackled again. "Cadet Li Wu Jin, this is Admiral Li Jin Wu. Report your status immediately. I am unharmed, sir." Wu Jin responded, speaking first in Korean before switching back to Galactic Standard for the benefit of his audience. "However, there has been an unprovoked assault on Cadet Park Dong Ho by Sergeant Krath Yun. The assault was witnessed by approximately 50 Academy personnel, so RA grabbed Wu Jin arm her, eyes wide with sudden understanding. "Your name? You share a name with the Admiral?" "My Uncle Wu," Jin said simply. "I volunteered for the Cultural Exchange Program to learn about other galactic species. My family thought the experience would be educational. Through the windows they could see more ships arriving. The dark, angular vessels were repositioning themselves in textbook military formations that spoke of discipline training and overwhelming technological superiority. Each ship was roughly the size of a galactic Navy destroyer, but their energy signatures were reading far higher than anything the aliens had encountered. Commander Vextar was frantically trying to contact his superiors, while Sergeant Krath Un stood frozen, finally beginning to understand the magnitude of his mistake. The other alien cadets had backed away from the humans. Their earlier confidence completely evaporated. "You see?" Wu Jin continued, his voice carrying clearly through the silent weapons bay. "Humans have an old saying about not starting fights you cannot finish. We joined your galactic community because we hoped to learn to grow and to find friendship among the stars. We sent our young people to train alongside yours in good faith." Minky was staring at his friend in amazement. "Wu Jin, "How many ships are out there?" he asked. 1,500 in the immediate response area," Wu Jin replied, checking the device on his wrist. "The rest of the Third Fleet is holding position at the edge of the system. We did not want to appear threatening by bringing our full military strength. A Titan cadet who had been particularly cruel to the humans managed to stammer rest of the fleet. How many ships do humans actually possess?" Wu Jin's smile grew wider, and, for the first time since joining the academy, the alien cadets in the room experienced what humans called genuine fear. "Enough," he replied. The Academy emergency klaxons continued to wail as more human ships materialized around Nexus Prime. Each new arrival added to the growing sense of panic among the alien cadets and instructors who had spent months treating humans as weak inferior, beings worthy only of mockery and contempt. Commander Vex Tar was screaming into his communicator, trying to reach anyone in the Galactic command structure who could explain how a species with supposedly primitive technology had just surrounded their most prestigious military installation with a fleet that could destroy the entire planet. "This is impossible," he kept repeating, his voice cracking with strain. "Human ships are small merchant vessels with basic defensive capabilities. Your entire species has maybe a few dozen interplanetary craft." "You are thinking of our civilian transportation fleet," Wu Jin explained patiently, as he watched more angular warships move into perfect attack formations through the weapons bay windows. "We keep our military vessels hidden from galactic space lanes because most alien species react poorly to displays of superior force." The communication system activated again with a new voice deeper and more authoritative than Admiral Lee Jin-woo. "This is Fleet Commander Park Sung-min of the Human Defense Corps. First Battle Group. The Academy Administration has exactly 10 minutes to produce the individual responsible for assaulting our personnel, or we will consider this an unprovoked act of war against humanity." Sergeant Krath Unlegs gave out, and he collapsed to his knees on the metal floor. His massive blue frame shook with terror as he finally understood what his casual violence had unleashed. A simple training incident had somehow brought an entire human battle fleet to his doorstep. The alien cadets who had been laughing and placing bets just minutes earlier were now backing toward the exits. Their superior strength, speed, and special abilities meant nothing against warships that could reduce the Academy to glowing debris in seconds. Min-Ki was frantically writing in his journal, trying to record everything he was witnessing. "This changes everything," he whispered to. "So Ra, if humans have this kind of military power, why did we come here as students? Why pretend to be weak?" "Because we wanted to learn," Wu Jin answered, overhearing the question. "We hoped that by training alongside other species, we could understand their cultures, their methods, their ways of thinking. We believed that knowledge would help us build better relationships with our galactic neighbors." So Ra was staring at the fleet formations visible through the windows. The ships were moving with precision that spoke of years of training and combat experience. "These are not new vessels," she observed. "The hull designs, the formation tactics, this fleet has been operating for a long time. My species has been exploring space for much longer than the galactic community realizes," Wu Jin confirmed. "We chose to reveal ourselves gradually to avoid causing panic or triggering defensive reactions from established civilizations." A Velocian cadet who had enjoyed tormenting humans with his phasing abilities managed to find his voice. "How long have you been watching us?" he asked. "Long enough," Wu Jin replied. "We have observation posts throughout this sector of the galaxy. We monitor galactic politics, trade routes, military movements, and potential threats to human colonies. The implications hit the alien cadets like physical blows. Humans had been watching them, studying them, analyzing their strengths and weaknesses while pretending to be harmless newcomers, seeking friendship and guidance. Commander Vex Tar finally managed to establish contact with Galactic Fleet Command, and the conversation was brief and terrifying. The voice from the communication system was barely controlled. "Panic? Commander, evacuate all non-essential personnel. Immediately, we are detecting massive energy signatures throughout the system. Human ships are appearing faster than our sensors can track them. How many ships are we facing? Vextar demanded. Conservative estimates suggest over 3,000 vessels, with more arriving every minute. We have never seen anything like this level of military deployment. The number sent shockwaves through the crowd of alien cadets. 3,000 ships was larger than most sector fleets. It was enough firepower to conquer entire star systems or defend against invasions by hostile Galactic. Powers through the windows, they could see the truth of the fleet commander. Words, the space around Nexus Prime was filling with human warships of every size and configuration, massive dreadnought-class vessels that dwarfed anything in the Galactic. Navy fast attack craft that moved like living things, and support ships whose purpose could only be guessed at. But what terrified the aliens most was the discipline and coordination. Every ship held perfect formation. Every movement was precise and purposeful. This was not a hastily assembled response force, but a mature military organization with years of experience working together. The Academy communication system activated once more, with Admiral Lee Jin-woo voice Cadet. Lee Woo-jin, we are preparing to beam down a diplomatic team to resolve this situation. Stand by for transport. A shimmering field appeared in the center of the weapons bay, causing the alien cadets to scramble backward in fear. When the energy field stabilized, 3 figures materialized, humans in dark military uniforms with insignia that meant nothing to the aliens, but made Woo Jin snap to attention. The central figure was clearly Admiral Lee Jin-woo. He was tall for a human, with graying hair and eyes that seemed to catalog every detail of the room in seconds. The woman to his left wore medical insignia, while the man on his right had the bearing of special operations. Uncle Woo Jin said formally in Korean, then switched to Galactic Standard. Thank you for responding so quickly to my message. Admiral Lee's gaze swept the room, taking in the injured Dong-ho, the terrified alien cadets, and finally settling on the massive blue form of Sergeant Krath-un. When he spoke, his voice carried absolute authority. Commander, Vextar, I assume you are in charge of this facility. We need to discuss why one of your personnel committed assault against a member of my family. Vextar tried to stammer something about training discipline and cultural misunderstandings, but the Admiral raised one hand for silence. Dr. Kim, he said to the medical officer, please examine Cadet Park Dong-ho and document his injuries for our records. As the doctor moved to treat Dong-ho, the Admiral turned to face Krath-un directly. Sergeant, you struck an unarmed cadet without provocation. In human military law, this constitutes aggravated assault. In our civilian courts, it would be considered assault and battery with intent to cause serious bodily harm. For a moment, Krath-un looked hopeful, thinking that human laws might not apply to him. But Admiral Lee continued with the same calm tone. However, since you are not human, I cannot apply our legal system to your actions. Instead, I will apply the oldest human law, the right of proportional response. The medical officer looked up from her examination of Dong-ho concussion, fractured cheekbone, possible internal bleeding, and severe trauma to the nervous system. If he were Altarian, these injuries would heal quickly. For a human, this requires immediate medical intervention and weeks of recovery. Thank you, Doctor. Admiral Lee turned back to Krath. Yoon, Sergeant, you injured one of our young people because you believed him to be weak and defenseless. This suggests you do not understand human nature. Very well. A Special Forces operative stepped forward and activated a portable holographic display. Images filled the air above the device, showing human soldiers in combat situations that made the alien cadets gasp in shock. Humans do not seek. Conflict Admiral Lee explained as the images played, we prefer peace cooperation and learning from other species, But when one of our people is attacked, we respond with what your military analysts would call overwhelming force. The hologram showed human Marines fighting creatures twice their size and winning through superior tactics, technology, and determination. Ships outnumbered 10-1, emerging victorious through better strategy and more advanced weapons. We have been monitoring this academy for months, the Admiral continued. Our young people reported harassment, discrimination, and the assumption that humans were natural victims. We hoped these were simply cultural adjustment difficulties. So Ra Min Ki and the recovering Dong Ho watched in amazement as their friend uncle calmly explained humanity's true position among the galactic powers. However, physical assault crosses a line we cannot ignore. Sergeant Krath, you struck my nephew, friend, because you believed humans were too weak to retaliate. This was a failure of intelligence on multiple levels. The holographic display continued to show images that shattered every assumption the alien cadets had made about human military capabilities. Ships that moved like living creatures through space battles where outnumbered human forces defeated. Enemies through tactics that seemed impossible, and ground combat where human soldiers overcame physically superior opponents through teamwork, technology, and pure determination. Admiral Lee Jin-woo watched the faces of the alien cadets as they processed this new information. Their expressions shifted from disbelief to shock to a growing understanding that they had completely misjudged the species they had been tormenting for months. The Academy communication system crackled to life again with urgent reports from Galactic Command. Admiral, we are reading massive energy buildups throughout the human fleet. Our sensors indicate they are preparing to demonstrate some form of advanced weapons technology. Admiral Lee activated his wrist communicator. Fleet Commander Park, please provide our hosts with a demonstration of our defensive capabilities. Target the asteroid field approximately 10,000 kilometers from our current position. Use minimum power settings through the weapons bay windows. The alien cadets watched in fascination and terror as the human ships began to turn toward empty space, where a field of asteroids drifted in orbit around Nexus Prime. The asteroids ranged in size from small rocks to massive chunks of stone and metal, some large enough to be classified as minor moons. The human ships moved with perfect coordination, each vessel taking position with mathematical precision that spoke of countless hours of training and experience. Their dark, angular hulls seemed to absorb the light from Nexus Prime's sun, making them appear like holes cut out of space itself. What you are about to witness, Admiral Lee announced to the silent crowd in the weapons bay, is what humans call restraint. We could have arrived here, with overwhelming force, demanded immediate surrender, and taken control of this entire system within minutes. Instead, we chose to ask politely for an apology. Energy began to build along the hulls of the human warships. The glow was different from anything the alien cadets had seen before, not the harsh blue-white of Altarian plasma weapons or the sickly green of Velocian disruptors, but something that seemed to bend light itself around the charging weapons. Commander Vextar was frantically trying to get readings on the human weapons, but his instruments kept failing. Every time the Academy sensors tried to analyze the energy signatures, the equipment overloaded and shut down to prevent permanent damage. The first human ship fired, and the result was beyond anything the aliens could have imagined. A beam of energy that seemed to twist space itself reached across 10,000 kilometers of void and touched one of the larger asteroids. The rock simply ceased to exist, not exploded, or vaporized but completely removed from reality, as if it had never been there at all. Before anyone could fully process what they had witnessed, dozens more beams lanced out from the human fleet. Each asteroid they touched vanished instantly, leaving only empty space where massive chunks of stone and metal had floated for millions of years. The demonstration lasted exactly 30 seconds. When it ended, the entire asteroid field had been completely erased from existence without leaving so much. As a particle of dust behind the human ships powered down their weapons and resumed their patient waiting formations around the Academy. The weapons bay was silent, except for the sound of alien cadets trying to remember how to breathe. Several Titan cadets who prided themselves on their incredible strength were staring at their own massive hands, wondering what use physical power could be against technology that could erase matter from existence. That Admiral Lee said quietly, "Is what humans call proportional response. We could have demonstrated our capabilities on military targets or populated areas. Instead, we chose to remove some space debris that posed a navigation hazard." Sergeant Krath UN was now lying flat on the floor, his massive frame convulsing with terror. The casual ease with which the human fleet had erased an entire asteroid field made his earlier violence seem not just foolish, but suicidal. Commander Vex's tar voice was barely above a whisper when he managed to speak. "How long have humans possessed this level of technology? Long enough to colonize 17 star systems and establish trade relationships with 43 species that your galactic community has never heard of," Admiral Lee replied. "We chose to introduce ourselves gradually to avoid causing the kind of panic we are witnessing now." Dr. Kim finished her examination of Dong Ho and activated a medical transport device. "Admiral, the injured cadet requires immediate treatment aboard our medical ship. His injuries are more severe than initially assessed. Woo." Jin stepped forward. "Uncle, I request permission to accompany my friend to ensure he receives proper care." "Permission granted," Admiral Lee replied, then turned to address the entire room. "Cadet Lee, gather your fellow human cadets. Your training at this academy is complete. You have learned what you came here to discover about other galactic species." As the humans prepared to leave, Admiral Lee turned back to Commander Vex Tar one final time. "Commander, when your superiors ask what happened here today, tell them this. Humans value peace, but we are not pacifists. We prefer cooperation, but we are not weak. We joined your galactic community in friendship, but we do not require your approval to survive and thrive among the stars." The holographic display activated one more time, showing a tactical readout of the human fleet positions around Nexus Prime. The numbers were staggering: 1,500 ships in close orbit with energy signatures. That indicated each vessel could level entire cities, and Commander Admiral Lee added as the teleportation field began to form around the human group. "The next time someone assumes humans are easy prey, remind them that we erased an entire asteroid field because one sergeant slapped one cadet. Imagine what we might do if someone actually threatened our colonies or our people." The teleportation field intensified and the humans began to shimmer and fade, but Admiral Lee's voice continued to carry clearly through the weapons bay. "We came to your academy in peace, seeking knowledge and friendship. We are leaving with a better understanding of galactic politics and the knowledge that some species only respect superior force. I trust this lesson will not need to be repeated." As the humans vanished in a column of shimmering energy, the alien cadets and instructors were left alone with the sight of 1,500 human warships maintaining perfect formation around their academy. Each ship represented technology so advanced that it made their own military forces look like Stone Age warriors carrying clubs. Through the communication system, they could hear frantic reports from Galactic Command describing human fleets appearing throughout. The sector military bases were reporting massive energy signatures as human ships revealed themselves from hidden positions where they had been watching and waiting. The species that had dismissed humans as weak prey animals were beginning to understand that they had made a fundamental error in judgment. The quiet diplomatic newcomers who had joined their galactic community seeking friendship and trade were actually one of the most advanced and powerful military forces in the known galaxy. Commander Vextar slumped into a chair as the full implications of the situation became clear. Every assumption, every policy, every military strategy based on human weakness would need to be completely reconsidered in the days that followed word of the incident, spread throughout the galactic community. The casual violence that had seemed so natural when directed at apparently helpless humans now looked like acts of suicidal madness. Trade requests began pouring in from species that had previously ignored human merchants. Diplomatic overtures multiplied as governments realized they needed to establish better relationships with a species that could erase star systems if sufficiently provoked military alliances were quietly proposed by civilizations that suddenly wanted human protection rather than human submission. And in a small medical bay aboard the human flagship, Park Dong-ho recovered from his injuries while listening to Wu Jin explain how a simple training exercise had accidentally revealed humanity's true place in the galactic order. The medical bay aboard the human flagship was unlike anything the recovering Dong-ho had ever seen. The walls seemed to glow with their own light, and medical equipment operated with a silence and precision that made galactic technology look primitive. And crude Dr. Kim worked with instruments that could repair damaged tissue at the cellular level, while monitoring devices tracked every aspect of his recovery. "Your injuries were more serious than we initially realized," Dr. Kim explained as she completed another scan. "The sergeant blow caused significant trauma to your brain and several internal organs. Without immediate treatment, the damage could have been permanent." Dong-ho tried to sit up, but gentle restraints kept him in place. "How long was I unconscious?" he asked. "Several hours," Wu Jin replied from a chair beside the medical bed. "The fleet arrived shortly after you were injured, and the diplomatic situation required immediate attention through the transparent walls of the medical bay. Dong-ho could see the interior of the human flagship. The corridors were filled with personnel moving with quiet efficiency, and the technology visible through open doorways was clearly decades ahead of anything used by the galactic community. "This ship is enormous," Dong-ho observed. "How many people serve aboard it?" "Approximately 12,000, Wu Jin answered. "The flagship serves as both a mobile command center and a diplomatic vessel when we need to project power while maintaining the possibility of peaceful resolutions." Ra and Min Ki entered the medical bay carrying reports and data tablets they had been studying since coming aboard. The information they had gathered was reshaping their understanding of humanity's place in the galaxy. "We have been reading the fleet records," so Ra announced. "The human military has been operating in this sector for over 50 years. They have colonies, trade routes, and defensive installations that the galactic community never detected." Minki opened his data tablet and began reading statistics that seemed impossible. 17 colonized star systems, 43 trade partnerships and defensive treaties with species that galactic databases list as extinct or mythical. Dr. Kim completed her medical procedures and stepped back to allow her patient more freedom of movement. "Cadet Park, you should make a full recovery within a few days. However, I recommend avoiding any more encounters with angry Altarian sergeants." The medical bay door opened, and Admiral Lee Jin-woo entered, followed by several senior officers. Their uniforms bore insignia and decorations that spoke of campaigns and victories against enemies the galactic community had never heard of. "How are you feeling?" "Cadet Park," the Admiral asked with genuine concern. "Much better, Sir," Dong-ho replied, attempting to sit at attention. "Despite the medical restraints," Uncle Wu Jin explained, "that my injuries triggered this entire diplomatic incident." The Admiral smiled briefly. "Your injuries revealed the true nature of galactic attitudes toward humanity," he corrected. "We have been monitoring increasing hostility toward our people at academies and diplomatic posts throughout this sector. It was only a matter of time before someone crossed the line from harassment to actual violence. One of the senior officers stepped forward and activated a holographic display showing tactical information from across the galactic sector. Admiral, our presence here has triggered significant changes in galactic military postures. Several species are repositioning their fleets and requesting emergency diplomatic meetings. As expected, Admiral Lee replied, "When a species discovers that their assumptions about relative military power were completely incorrect, they tend to become very interested in renegotiating relationships." The holographic display shifted to show communication traffic between galactic governments. The volume of messages was staggering as civilizations tried to understand how they had so completely misjudged human capabilities. Soara was studying the tactical displays with fascination. "How did you keep such a large